Hey guys, welcome to the show. Thanks for tuning in with your radio dials. Just kidding. With probably your phone or your computer, one or the other. So I wanted to play an interview that I did almost 2 years ago now with a fellow named Christoffer Franzen. He is a guy from Sweden who is a composer, I would call him probably. He writes music under the name Lights&Motion, but he also does some music under his own name, which is more music for film and television, and Lights&Motion is more kind of post-rock sort of thing, a lot of ambient sounds, and it's just a guy I have so much respect and admiration for. I love his music. Sorry for the not as good quality intro here. This is a voice memo I'm taking on my phone because I am traveling. I was traveling, I should say. Well, you get the point. I'm on the road right now. I'm in Dallas, Texas. I'm not at home. And I could only bring so much stuff with me on the plane. And I couldn't bring my recording gear. So this is going to have to suffice. It's a super gloomy day here. But this interview is going to cheer you up. I figure it's super appropriate for the ideas of what this show is going to be all about. It's going to be about music and about how music gets created. You know, I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there about music, so that's all a little broad. But we want to peel back the curtain a little bit, and we want to find out how the sausage gets made. We're not just here to talk about, you know, the band or the artist or the drama. Like we want to hear some technical stuff, you know. So that's what I want to know about, and I think that's what you guys are going to be thrilled to hear about. So, yeah. All right, guys. Well, I hope you enjoy the interview. This is from my last podcast, but it's going to work for this one perfectly. Christoffer Franzen from Gothenburg, Sweden.
Hey guys.
Hey Chris.
What's up, Chris?
I'm all right. How are you?
Good.
Nice to see you guys.
Yeah. What's going on today?
I'm riding all day. I've been here for 9 hours already, so I'm pretty beat. I'm gonna go for another couple of hours. You gotta strike once the iron is hot, right?
Yes,
that's right.
Exactly.
That's right.
I mean, how many days a week do you write usually?
I try to write at least 6 days a week. Sometimes I need a day to just do nothing that has to do with music at all. But
right.
I try to keep it fresh.
Yeah, sometimes you gotta just decompress, right? And just
I'm way too bad at that though. Like I go for way too long without taking a break, and then I sort of feel all anxious and I don't really have a break. I just worked way too much. I realize that. But
workaholic.
Yeah, for sure. For good or bad. You know, you get things done, but
right.
Sometimes the balance isn't quite there in your other areas of your life. It's just, become sort of a loner here.
Yeah.
I like to say I'm like Gollum here. I just hunch over the piano and write all day. Don't really see a lot of people, but music is fun, so I'm not complaining really.
No, and the results are worth it in the end.
Absolutely.
I think it justifies.
Thank you. Yeah. I think you need to put in the hours. Like, there's no shortcut to actually doing the work.
No, you know, you're right, because we were just having this conversation the other day about how, you know, like we always like to talk about, okay, so I'll sit down and I'll work on something, or I'll write something, or I'll try to come up with a song, and it really is just talk if you don't like actually sit down and do it. And it's just so easy to just talk about it, and then before you know it, like I remember earlier, like it's almost the new year now, and I remember I guess earlier this year in January, thinking, this year a goal is like I want to have at least a 5 or 6 song EP of just some original things that I did, and it didn't happen. It didn't happen.
Yeah.
And not going to let it happen again this next year, though. But
no. It's very easy to get caught in that trap, though, saying tomorrow all the time. And I've just gotten into the habit of saying today instead.
Yeah,
so
that's good.
I think that's good advice. It's really simple, but it's hard to stay consistent with it.
It is, yeah. But everyone knows really what you need to do. It's just very easy to come up with excuses and find obstacles and stuff. But I have a system where if I don't start something, I won't finish when it comes to songwriting or mixing or whatever. Yeah. So when I have a song that I'm working on, that occupies my entire life pretty much. Like I can't relax until that song is done. And I don't start a second song until the first thing is done. Because otherwise you'll sit there with 10 half-done ideas.
Exactly.
And no proper song.
Exactly.
Yes, it's so
and it
true.
Gets cluttered. Yeah, it gets cluttered so fast if you don't rein yourself in and actually finish what you start.
Yeah, so I've got so many partially started things on my hard drive. I'm so guilty of this.
Me too, man.
Well, we all are. But you got to do what you can, and I can't. Like it's almost like a weight on me when I'm working on something. Like I can't relax until it's done. Last night I was here for probably 10 hours during the day. I went home, and then at around right before midnight, I actually went back just to finish what I had been working on during the day because I couldn't go to sleep knowing that I had something I wanted to get down. And that's pretty standard in my everyday life, unfortunately.
A blessing and a curse, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because you got a real fire for it.
Yeah.
A fire and or compulsive behavior. I'm not quite sure, depending on how you see it.
Let's look at it from the good side, though.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's really fun. And the thing is that I still think it's as fun as I did the first day I went into a recording studio. So
that's great.
To
be able to keep that enthusiasm. That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Very good.
And I noticed a couple of years back when it was a slight shift when music became a must more than a passion. You felt the need to produce things constantly, and that's also a dangerous trap to get into when you don't feel like you want to do it, but you need to do it. And that can sort of stifle your creativity. But now I'm in a great place. I'm working all the time. I'm feeling very creative, and when it feels like that, you just got to go.
Take advantage of it.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Now,
what do you guys do? Are you both musicians and guitarists, or?
Yeah. So I'm, I guess, let's see. So for me, I've been a musician for roughly about 10 years or so. I'm 23. I'm not that old. And Nick, you are 24?
Yeah, I'm almost 25, Chris. I'll be turning 25 on the 19th of this month. I've been playing guitar for on and off for about 14 years, I think.
So I started actually on the bass, and that just came from, I have an older brother. He's my only sibling, and he's 26, I think he might be 27 now. He just turned 27 in October, but he started playing the guitar, and it was really just as simple as, well, you chose that. I wanted to follow in his footsteps in a way because I looked up to him, but I didn't want to be viewed as a copycat either. So I just picked the bass. So that way I'd be playing music too, but not the same thing as him. And so I played the bass for probably about 7 years and 6 or 7 years until I had picked up guitar just a little bit here and there until I decided one day, I want to write my own things, and that's going to require a command of guitar. So I picked up the guitar and just started teaching myself, and I've been playing guitar for about 4 years now. Still not the world's greatest guitarist by any stretch of the imagination, but I just got an acoustic recently, and that's going to be a very valuable writing tool. And my family also just inherited like this old Wurlitzer upright piano from a family member that just passed away. So that's also nice to have around. So I'm kind of tinkering with that. So there's no more excuses, basically.
No, well, I think bass gets a bad rep sometimes. I love bass.
Me too.
Bass is like one of my favorite things to record when I'm writing a song.
It's very important as well.
It is so important, and it can really like change the entire feel of a track.
Mm-hmm.
It is the foundation, truly. So I'm always looking forward to playing bass. Although I didn't start to play bass until my early 20s, because I was a guitarist at first. So we went from guitar. I started playing bass because every guitarist can sort of figure out how to play bass. And then we had a piano here in the studio, and I just started without knowing how to take a chord on the piano. I just started try to identify the notes and.
But you had an ear for it, right?
Yeah, it was all ear, like trying to hear.
Yep.
And
that's so important.
At first, I didn't even know. I just tinkered until I felt that it sounded right. And then more and more you learn the theory behind it. But I think it's very important to allow yourself to experiment and not like think that it's going to be an easy ride to learn an instrument, because as we all know, it's not very easy.
It's a tough road.
It gets easier, but the first hump, when your fingers are aching and you can't seem to get a grip on things, that's when a lot of people just call it quits. And it does get easier after a while.
That's where you need to push through, though, and continue on anyway, even though you might feel discouraged because it's not clicking yet.
Yeah, I started very late. I didn't get my first guitar until I was 15, and then I sort of made up for it by practicing like 6 hours a day, I think.
Wow.
I practiced till my fingers bled. I'm sure you guys have the same thing before your skin gets hardened.
Yeah,
it takes a while to build up
blisters and stuff.
Yeah,
the worst. Yeah. So I would just play like a madman, and I'd try to squeeze in like four missing years of guitar into one. So I sort of got the hang of it pretty quickly, and I just loved guitar, and I still love guitar music a lot, even though I now write a lot on piano and stuff. But guitar is still my main friend, so to speak.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, well, I love how we've just kind of already jumped into conversation, because we haven't even touched any questions that I had written. But so you're out in Sweden, right?
That's right.
Sweden. Okay. So, but you're not in Stockholm, right?
No, I'm in Gothenburg. It's the second biggest city here.
Gothenburg. That almost sounds like Gotham, like Batman.
It feels like it now. It's so dark. Like it's 3 PM. It's completely black outside in the winter time.
Yeah.
And it's so cold. But Stockholm is probably 5-6 hours away. So this is the lesser known sibling of Stockholm,
nice.
I would say.
I do have a friend that is currently living in Norway. She's like a photographer, and she's a creative type as well. Now I'm curious, do you guys in Sweden feel like you have a rivalry with the Norse people?
Yeah, we have a famous rivalry. The Swedes always make fun of the Norwegian people, and I guess they do too with us. I'm not quite sure. But my grandmother is Norwegian, so I'm part Norwegian actually.
Oh, that's funny. Okay.
Yeah,
so
but I haven't been there for years.
So you have a foot on both sides, so to speak.
Yeah, I guess so.
But more so with the Swedes, because
sure.
That's where you're born and raised, right?
Born and raised. Yeah. Norway is very pretty, though. They have these big mountains and rivers and stuff.
And the fjords.
The fjords.
Yeah, the fjords.
Gorgeous nature.
I've seen some pictures from it, and I would love to visit. Now, Sweden has natural beauty too, though, right?
Yeah, but more flat, or more. It's not as spectacular, but it's all right here. If you go way up north, you can see northern lights and stuff.
Oh, I was just gonna ask about that.
Yes,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
I've seen it once in my life when I was 12. We went on this hike. And spent the night out in the wild, and we had to build we had to like sleep in the snow. We just had to build a little, a blanket of snow, and we stayed there. And it was so cold, but the northern lights came out around midnight, and it was
beautiful.
Just gorgeous.
That's great, man.
Wow, that's really cool. So we're gonna try to cover kind of, I guess. We'll take it from the beginning, kind of how you got started and how that progressed for you, and then we will try to, if we have the time allows, get current and talk about some of the current projects and what's, I know you've got an upcoming release this next month, which I'm excited about, and what you're up to these days. So just from the very beginning, let's just talk about how you got started in music at all in the first place. Like what was the beginning? Like when were you interested and when did you start picking it up? And so what was that start for you?
So I got my first guitar when I was 15, and that was because my neighbor had a guitar, and I would start tinkering on it without knowing how to play at all. But I sort of quickly got the hang of it, and then when I got my first guitar, I got absolutely obsessed with playing. And you spend a couple of years just learning other people's songs, and then you get bored with that and try to start writing your own material, or find your own playing style, or just evolve in a direction. And then I met up with a few friends from high school, I guess, and we started playing together. And that sort of went pretty well, and we got to do a couple of cool shows. We got the chance to play for a big event where you remember the Twilight films?
Yes.
Yeah. So the second film had a big premiere here in Sweden when the cast was coming over. So we got to play the opening. Yeah, we had to open the entire night for. It was probably 10,000 people there. But fast forward a couple of years, that didn't go anywhere. We started drifting into different directions, pretty much.
That's cool.
And then so I always wanted to be able to myself go from creating an idea to having a finished product. I didn't like to depend on other people in order for me to write music, so I tried to learn production and mixing and all that stuff you need to know,
right,
to make a song sound like a song.
Yeah,
that was a couple of years where I spent my nights writing by myself. I didn't really sleep that much. I had some insomnia issues. So yeah.
Is this when you were still a teenager?
No, this is my early 20s.
Okay, now early 20s.
Oh, sorry, yeah, I jumped a couple of years. Yeah, by myself, I was sort of 22, 23, just writing music, not thinking that I would ever release it or anything, but I just wanted to evolve, and I had a vision of some type of music that I wanted to create, but I wasn't at the point where I knew how to get there. So just a lot of experimentation, and I always try to remember that time spent doing it is never time wasted, no matter if you're unhappy with the results or if you don't feel like you're reaching your goals, your potential.
That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, because in every production you do, you learn what you like, you learn what you maybe don't like, so it all takes you a step forward. So I did that for quite a few years, and then I posted a song or two on SoundCloud, and they sort of got listened to a couple of thousand times very quickly, and I got all these comments asking me when I was going to release an album, and there was really no point at all where I thought that I would actually do that. So that took me by surprise, I guess. And then this was before I started Lights&Motion. This was just me putting stuff out. And that encouragement sort of kept me going and made me think that perhaps I should write an album or I should create more music. And so all these years, they were pretty much all about me just experimenting by myself at night. And that's why I kind of fast forward, because there were like 3 years where I did nothing else but record and try to learn stuff before ever releasing anything.
Wow, that right there. Let's pause on that just 1 second, because that right there is almost a challenge to me, and I think a lot of people in kind of modern culture, and I think even between Sweden and the U.S., we would have this in common, that we live in a world where things are so quick and instant, and we want things to be at our fingertips quickly. We live in a world where so many things are on demand now. And you were saying this earlier, like with songwriting and music, like it's not something that you can just push a button and you automatically have it. Like it really has to be developed. And I find that very challenging to say, like, wait, what? So I might have to like write for 3 years before I ever put anything out. And I know that's not what you're saying, but before I'm like at a place where I'm starting to feel like I'm developing an identity musically.
Yeah. Well, it does take a long time. And patience is a virtue, they say.
Yeah.
I guess that's true. That was true for me. Looking back at all those years of just bashing my head to a wall, pretty much. It was all it was an important experience having done it. It's not something I miss, really.
Yeah.
It's sort of frustrating when you clearly have an image in your head of what you want it to be and you're not quite sure how to get there.
Right.
Yeah, but I think you can learn anything these days with like YouTube, and you can borrow books on the library. You can talk to people, and there's all kind of ways to get information.
The resources do exist. Yes.
Yeah, for sure. So the only thing stopping you really is your ambition, I would say.
Yeah, so how hard you're willing to work, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
To have it.
Because it's, especially if you're making music by yourself, like I have been doing for 7 years now, it's a lonely existence in a way. It's very rewarding to be able to create every day almost. So even though it's a solitary existence in one way, it's so great when you get to actually release the music you've been working on, and you feel like you have people out there interested in what you're producing, and you get encouragements and feedbacks. And I value that very highly. I gotta say.
That's good.
That keeps me going.
To see that finished product after working so hard, to listen to your own song, just the feeling you get. Yeah, that's great.
And to know that other people heard it and connected with it.
And liked it, yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. I still feel like that's the ultimate payoff when you can release it out into the world. It's no longer yours. It's for everyone, really. And
wow.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I mean, just think about this. We are two guys who are sitting in Indiana, close to Chicago, here in the United States, and you're all the way sitting in Sweden writing something. You put it out there. We heard it. We liked it.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It is insane. Yeah. That's the great thing about the time we were living in. Like the borders and doesn't really matter where you are in the world. Obviously.
Not so much.
No. You can always find ways to talk to people and communicate your ideas and stuff. I love that. Not be limited in any way, really.
Oh yeah. So let's move forward just a little bit past that. So you had that period of years when you were just writing and you weren't putting anything out until you had a couple things out on SoundCloud and you got a little bit of buzz from that. And then what was the next step after that? Is that when you decided you were going to start Lights&Motion?
Yeah. I spent quite a lot of time thinking about how I wanted to present my vision, so to speak. And it was very important for me to have in lack of a better word, a concept behind my music,
there
both
you go.
Visually and.
So how'd you come up with that particular name then?
That I wanted something that represented what I felt my music was all about. So it's all a bit abstract, but I wanted something that was visually powerful, I guess. And then I love U2 with a passion. At least I did a couple of years back, a lot more. And I was watching all these live shows they were doing. And one show, Bono walked out on stage, and there was a big arena with flashing lights and stuff. And just before he started singing, he said, Light&Motion, when he was like looking at all the people. And that sort of stuck with me. And then when it came time to name my project, I just gravitated towards that. And I added I just felt it encapsulated everything that I wanted to get across.
It's a great name, man.
Thank you. Yeah, it feels good. And the visual aspect has always been very important for me. having a clear idea of what kind of tone I want, what kind of colors I use, and try to infuse that with the music so you get that audiovisual experience. Even if you're just listening to the music, my goal is for the music to evoke some sort of imagery, whatever that may be.
Yes, absolutely. So something. Well, before I get to that next one, because I had some things in my head about just the imagery, because I've had my own ways that it's kind of struck me and some of my own interpretations of how that comes across. But before we get there, let's just talk about a little bit of some sources of inspiration. Like, where do you draw your inspiration for your writing and the music and how it comes out?
Yeah, I love movies and TV shows, and I watch a lot of stuff late at night, and that is my main source of inspiration, I gotta say. Every time I watch a great movie, I get so inspired, and I almost always want to go here, even if it's in the middle of the night. So that's a big help. So it's not really music that inspires me. It's more, again, the visual element of things.
Interesting.
And what I'll do sometimes is I'll bring my laptop here, and I'll just put on, it could be trailers, it could be movies, and I just mute the sound and let the visuals run. And then I'll see if I can write to the images, so to speak.
Yeah.
And that usually helps me. And I'm also, I try to have a very strict work ethic. I can sit here for 5 hours not getting anything done. But then eventually you'll always stumble on something. So inspiration is great, but I've tried to train myself in writing and making inspiration happen, so to speak. Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah,
absolutely. Not just sitting around and waiting for that flash of an idea. You got to create an environment where that might happen.
Yeah, I seem to always, anytime, I talk about this book a lot. There's a book out there by a guy named Stephen Pressfield called The War of Art. Have you heard of it?
Yeah, not read it though.
Yeah, I haven't. Funny thing is, I haven't finished it. Like, I only read about half of it, so I need to go back and read it. But I believe he talks about somebody in there, or maybe this is from somewhere else, but just going off that concept you just said there, like, there's a guy who says, yeah, I always wait for inspiration to hit me before I write. It just so happens that inspiration hits me every morning at 9 a.m.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There is truth to that. Because otherwise you can wait forever. So you got to make it happen.
Very true.
Yeah.
Very true.
Not very romanticized view, perhaps, but it works for me. Like, I try to go here every day at the same time, and I have my guitar and my piano, and I have a cup of coffee, and just try to write. And sometimes you got to go through a couple of hours where it just feels like nothing is happening, but then you'll stumble upon a little melody that eventually might be turned into a song, and you would have never gotten to that place if you hadn't spent the previous hours just trying your hardest.
Yeah. Right.
And I have so many songs that have come to life through that process.
Yeah.
It's almost scary. Like,
yeah.
You don't really control it, but that's how I view it, really.
That's great. So, Chris, who are some of your top influencers, or who are some composers or artists you really look up to, and why?
Well, I love film music, and Alexandre Desplat is a French composer who writes some great music. I even like more commercial ones like Hans Zimmer.
Oh, yeah.
Inception and
Interstellar soundtrack is just phenomenal.
They are so great. So he's a big inspiration. I'm actually going to see him live with an orchestra in Stockholm in a couple of months.
Wow, lucky man.
Yeah,
that's
jealous.
And I love. I still love Coldplay. The melodic.
things
they have going on.
Yeah.
So I listen to a lot of stuff. I don't really listen to a lot of post rock though. Weirdly enough.
Yeah.
So it's more film music and. Film music. James Horner is great.
Mm-hmm.
James Newton Howard. There's a guy called Keith Kenneth. He has a project called Helios.
I'm familiar with him.
Yeah, and he is just amazing. So he's a constant source of inspiration, for sure.
Nice. Yeah, well, the film thing definitely comes out in your stuff. So now coming back to the visual stuff, because I said I want to get there.
Yeah.
What I've noticed in your visuals, or if there's a pattern at all, what I see is like you always seem to put a focus or an emphasis on things like the stars and the heavens, and just looking up into the expanse that is the universe. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I think that just pairs well so much with music that's more ambient and just soundscapes and things like that, because I always thought when I listened to just ambient music with just lots of reverb, the way I just described it to people who don't really get it is like, it just feels like you're kind of floating through space or something,
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, I think if I listen to ambient stuff or very atmospheric stuff, it's a lack of solidness in the music.
Yeah,
there's sort of
like there's not a defined rhythm there.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, and that is kind of like the night sky, or that sort of thing. So definitely there is a point to that. I like this. The night sky is inspiring. It is.
Absolutely,
it really is,
and it makes for beautiful imagery too.
Oh, for sure.
I always like the color blue and like bluish tones and that sort of color palette. I really feel drawn to somehow.
Yeah, it's like anytime you like really do look up into the sky, like intentionally, like you always just get like almost overwhelmed. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like it's just, wow, we are so small.
That we are.
Yeah. But yeah, I like how you make the connection there with the ambient stuff, because I've been there myself as well. So now let's go to like the first record you ever did with Lights&Motion. So you put out a record called Reanimation. That was your first debut. Now, was that your first ever album release of anything that you've ever done?
Yeah, it was. That was my first big connected piece of music that I released.
And what was the process like for creating that?
That was all those years we spoke about earlier, gathering bits of melody and bits of atmosphere, and that was sort of the culmination of I would say 5 years of work. Just
wow,
everything pointing towards that moment. And I just that's every album I make sort of represents a certain time in my life. I guess that's true for any artist or band, but that is very much my insomnia nights capitalized in music. Like when I listen to those songs, I just remember all the nights I was here, and I would go home in the middle of, like right before dawn, pretty much, after having spent like 15 hours here, and I think, man, no one is ever gonna hear these songs. What am I doing?
That's incredible.
Yeah. So the fact that it got a pretty good reception was very gratifying for me, and that made me instantly want to write a second album. I felt so inspired by the entire thing. Yeah, it's very rewarding releasing albums.
Yeah, so that almost kind of answers my question, the next one, because I was just wondering, what did it finally feel like when it was finished and it was released and those songs were out in the world? Those, like your first group of songs that's been available to everybody.
Yeah.
And you said, it made me want to write right away again for the second one.
Yeah, I felt very inspired.
Yeah.
And it is scary to release music, as you probably know.
Yeah.
Like you worked on it for so long, and when it's time to share, you always have that little bit of doubt if what you've written is good enough, or if anyone will like it. But I just like when I feel inspired, I try to make the most of that, because you don't really know how it goes. It ebbs and flows, and so the second album came very naturally. Actually, I didn't really take a break. I just pushed on writing, really. And the second album is a bit different. I think after every album you need to reassess and see what you can do differently and which ways to go, so you just don't repeat your same techniques, and like you develop certain styles. And especially if you're writing music by yourself, you don't have other bandmates that can come with input, and you can't bounce off other people. So I think you need to make a conscious effort to try to step away from what you've just done and find new ways of expressing whatever it is you want to express. Yeah.
So it doesn't get too stale, doing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah. For me as much as for anything or anybody else, because it's not fun just doing the same thing. So I always try to experiment, see what I can do differently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there ever times when you do collaborate with anybody else, or do you pretty much just fly solo all the time?
For my Lights&Motion stuff, I do everything by myself. That is sort of my baby, so to speak. So I'm very protective of that. Outside of that, I have written music with other people. There's a guy, an American guy actually. We've written a couple of songs, and I've scored a couple of short films, and that's a very collaborative process, obviously. And that's always very fun to step outside your usual process with other people. So I really enjoy it, and I look forward to doing more of it in the future for sure. But when it comes to Lights&Motion, my vision is very, I would say, clear, and I have a.
It's specific, right?
Yeah, it is very specific, and I like having total control of everything to the tiniest detail.
Well, that makes sense. There's definitely a reason for that.
Yeah, but everything you do that's out of the ordinary is good for you, I think. You evolve, and you can bring that back with you when you do my Lights&Motion stuff. Every collaboration adds to the process, I guess. Yeah.
So, well, hopefully you don't mind if we ask you a little bit on the technical side, some questions like that. So, what's your usual starting point when you sit down to write something? Do you gravitate towards the guitar first or the piano first?
More and more, it is the piano.
Okay.
For my first two albums, there was a lot of guitar, and then it wasn't really a conscious decision, but I just started to gravitate towards the piano because that was the first thing I saw in my studio, and I would just go there and sit down immediately, and not having to bring out all my pedals and amps and stuff. So, yeah, I like to start with the piano, or I like to start with just creating an atmosphere. Like I'll sit here and I'll process things and create like a soundscape for. So I can bring something else into that soundscape, and that always helps me somehow. So the soundscape of the atmospheres are very. There's no bass in it. There's just a lot of floating. High
absolutely. Now, do you like to do that like more with MIDI stuff, virtual instruments, and different synths like I don't know, Omnisphere or something like that, or do you like to use guitar and just use lots of delay and reverb and swells and things like that?
A combination of the two. I have Omnisphere. I love Omnisphere, but I have a preset allergy, so I never use anything that's out of the box. What I like to do is like I'll layer guitar, and I'll maybe sing a vocal harmony, and then I'll maybe add a synth layer, and then I'll process it all, export it, bring it back in, mangle it, put filters on it, delays, reverb, so it becomes its own thing, so to speak.
So even if you're doing separate things, eventually you merge them all together and process them like as one.
I never look for like a synth patch to have everything I need. It's like a building block in the bigger picture.
There we
so
go.
I might have an idea of a high frequency sound, and I'll look for that, and I'll add that, and then I'll have something that's a bit more low mid, and then I'll bring in a different sound for that, and I'll have maybe something that just widens the panoramic soundscape, and I might add high guitar, like fiddly, twiddly stuff, and just put a lot of delays on it. So I like to build my atmospheres consistent of
piece by piece
layers. Yeah, piece by piece, exactly.
That's really
and that
cool.
way you can create much more detailed and expressive atmospheres. Cause I just hate when people put like a big pad and just like press a chord, nothing ever happens. It's just a very static and that's not very inspiring for me. So I like to
Like it's almost boring, right?
yeah, I like to create stuff with movement, so it's fluid and changes and it ebbs and flows and.
Right.
I think in terms of how wide it's going to be, and also in octaves going both up and low. So it might start very mid, and I'll add top layers and bottom layers in terms of octaves as I go along to like expand on both horizons. So that's the way I usually set it up.
That makes a lot of sense, because I've often wondered while listening to your stuff, like, man, how does he get it to sound so big, and just how many layers are in there? I've wondered that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, there are a lot of layers. A lot of tracks have songs have almost 200 tracks in them.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah. Now, of course, that does not mean that 200 tracks are firing at once. That just means that's total count.
It's like 10 of those tracks can be the tiniest little. I call them sonic fairy dust tracks. They just they just flicker.
Yeah.
Like in your ear.
Like you're just sprinkling a little bit, just a pinch of
a little bit here and there, and have and not feel like everything you put in has to be upfront. Like it's worth spending a day just doing these little tiny things that come in and out, because I think it enriches the listening experience. So I spend a lot of time just sprinkling stuff on it to make it exciting for me as much as for anyone else.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Those details make the difference, though. I really
think so. Like you don't create a painting from a couple of big brushstrokes. So tiny details. So and I also love that stuff in other people's music when I feel like they have spent a lot of time tweaking it so that it always is fresh and interesting.
Yeah.
But it is very like musically indulgent, but I like it a lot, so I'm not going to stop.
Yeah, good.
Now, this isn't like an artistic question, but I am curious, since you're talking about upwards of 200 tracks and stuff. What kind of processing power does your computer have? Like, just how powerful is it? Does it need to be?
It's all right. I have a Mac, but what I do is
it a Mac Pro, like one of the tower ones, or are you on an iMac?
I'm an iMac. Yeah, I need an iMac.
Nice.
And what I'll do is I'll push the computer until it sounds like it's breaking down, and then I'll fold like 10 tracks. I'll make a quick mix of them, and then I'll fold them, bring them back in with like only one stereo track, and I'll do that a lot. Just rinse and wash. Bring it in, process it, bring it back in, export it, process it. So because otherwise the computer would like be on fire right now.
Yeah.
So you got to work around the technology, and it is very good, but you can do that. Like you just got to commit to what you've done. You can't have everything. Like if you're working with synths or MIDI, you can't have 20 instances of Omnisphere running. You got to commit to the sounds and just print them.
Yeah.
Just like you would on tape, actually, and then.
It's easy to forget that in a world of digital, when you can lay down tracks to the nth degree infinitely, and so you do push that thing to the limits, and then eventually when you reach that, then that's when you have to kind of bring it back down to earth.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so like now let's say like you have a song finished. Well, I imagine you wait until everything has been written until you start getting into the whole mixing thing, right?
No, that's where I'm sort of different, because for me the mixing part is as much a part of the composition as the writing.
Yeah. Can you talk about kind of like production and mixing and just kind of how all those things link together?
Yeah. So usually you'll record all the tracks and then you'll mix. But I like to mix as I go along, because I never do any pre-production. So I'm actually writing and mixing at the same time, because I need to know what's lacking, what I need, what direction I want to go in. And it's not very inspiring to sit and listen to 200 tracks that are unmixed and uneq'd and uncompressed. And so since I have such a high track count on my productions, I need to keep it in order, sort of. So I mix throughout the process, and then once the song is like everything that's supposed to be written is written, I will probably make 30 mixes. Like I'm such an anal mixer.
Wow.
So I'll do a mix and I'll bring it home. And I'll listen in my iPhone speakers here, and if the bass might be just a tad high and there might be a guitar part that's not coming through, and I'll go back and I'll adjust those. And it always ends up being like 20, 30 mixes just to get it perfectly balanced. And then you have to realize that, okay, now nobody's going to be able to hear a difference between mix 29 and mix 30. And that's when I'll stop, effectively. You do realize that you become, like, you do it for yourself, because people are, like, if you're not a musician yourself or a producer or a mixer, you might not be able to pay attention to if the snare drum has a 1 dB increase at 8K.
Yeah.
You know, it becomes way too detailed and nerdy. But
those are things that I do. Not at the same level as you, but I mean, I do like to mix and stuff too, but I bet I wouldn't even notice it.
Probably not, but you need to feel good about it, and it is important. Like even if people can't really point to a specific instrument or a specific thing you did, I think they can sort of feel if the song is very well mixed, or if you put in
absolutely
the shift. Yeah,
absolutely. The average listener has what I like to call like a bird's eye view of the mix, because they don't have the language or the understanding to say what it is that they like about it per se, but they can use adjectives. They can say, I like that it feels like it's upbeat, or I like the energy, or I feel like the drums are strong, or, you know, or I like the beat. I like how that makes me feel, or I like how the bass is deep and strong, or, you know, whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I always try to get at least one friend who's not into music at all, just to listen to my songs and like judge their reactions, because you need that perspective too, so you don't forget it. But yeah, mixing is very important, and I think it's very fun too. So I like to do it. I like to do it myself.
Nice.
Yeah.
You want to take the next one?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. We just had a quick question about your insomnia, Chris. Yeah, is it something that has always been? Is something that you've always had, or is it, you know, is related to your mind being too overactive? Is there just things on your mind that keep you awake? Or
I'm not quite sure.
Yeah.
I've always had trouble sleeping, even since I was a kid.
Yeah.
I didn't really like to go to bed, and I had trouble sleeping, so I would stay up all night, and that carried on into my adult life.
Wow.
And it goes in waves. I just don't really get tired at night. So last night I sat up until 3 a.m. and then I said I need to sleep because I got to be in the studio by 9 the morning after. Still couldn't fall asleep.
Yeah.
So I only slept like 4 hours last night. So that's I'm not quite sure.
Well, how do you feel when you wake up though after 4 hours of sleep? Do you feel like, oh, I'm ready to go, or do you feel like, oh, I'm tired, I need to sleep more?
Well, you do feel tired, but like you can always manage for a couple of nights with bad sleep. It's all right. But when you go past like 3, 4, you're not going to be able to make anything useful of yourself.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I try to be better at sleeping, or like take that part of the day seriously, because it's not very healthy not to sleep for a prolonged period of time. But I'm not sure why. I've never been to a sleep doctor.
Yeah.
I've heard that actually sleep deprivation is one of the methods of torture that is used, as like forcing people to stay awake and not sleep. So it's really that important. Is the insomnia thing something that's still, has it gotten better nowadays from where it was?
It's better if I keep tabs on it. It's like working out almost. You got to focus some energy at creating good. I'm not quite sure how to phrase it, but if I don't pay attention to it, I'll like stay up until 6, 7 in the morning, and then I won't be able to sleep for a couple of days. So yeah, it is better. It's not like it was when I was in my early 20s.
Yeah.
Just because you don't feel very well if you don't do it. So I pay attention to it. So yeah, it's better, but
are you in your late 20s now or early 30s?
I'm 28.
28.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. What I'm hearing from you is like it's almost like you're saying that sleep is something that you like have to remind yourself to do. Like,
yeah, I mean,
otherwise the time will just pass you by, and before you know it, it's 6 a.m.
Yeah, some people look forward to going to bed, and
like me.
I just do it. I just do it because I need to, and it's like 3 a.m. and I gotta get up in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I'm not quite sure what that is.
Nighttime.
I think it is because I have troubles. I have a lot of troubles falling asleep, and especially if I've been working all day, I'll have melodies just repeating endlessly in my head, and that can be really hard to shut down. So
yeah, it's almost like you don't want to abandon that, right?
Yeah, or just the computer, my brain. My brain is over, like, so, like, if you listen to the same melody for hours and hours and hours.
Yes.
And the brain can't shut it off. So what I'll do is I'll put a YouTube clip on with, it's called Rain on 10. So someone just recorded rain inside a tent for a couple of hours. And I'll usually have that sort of suss out the noise in my head, and
so that'll kind of like clear out the that'll like cleanse your palate, so to speak.
Yeah, cleanse it for sure.
I completely understand, Chris, what you're saying about, just not wanting to go to bed. I feel like nighttime for me as well is probably when I'm most creative, and it's just like you feel like you're not missing out on anything outside. You can just, it's all you writing. You kind of feel like you're the only one there at the time, and I totally understand that. So
yeah, that's exactly what. When I did my first album, I used to think that the entire city is asleep and I'm the only person awake.
Yeah.
And it is something magical about that feeling.
Yeah.
Like you get extra time that no one else has during that day.
Yeah. So, yeah, me and him were joking around actually about because I told him a little bit, I read before we talked to you, I was like, I read somewhere like he did an interview and he talked about insomnia, and I was like, what if it's almost like that could almost be useful, because like just think about it, if like you had just this extra amount of hours every day to like get all this stuff done that you don't get done.
Yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, for a short while that is true. I think it all comes back to you in the end, though. Like your body needs a certain amount of time to just unwind and relax. So you can go you can go on that for a while, but then you need to
it'll come back to bite you if you ignore it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's so interesting that you just, like, sleep is like, it's like this biological function that's like a necessity for everybody, and pretty much everybody loves it. And you're like the first guy I've ever talked to that's like, sleep, I need to do it. So I do it out of necessity so that I can keep functioning. Like, I couldn't imagine somebody saying that, like, about food. Yeah, food, it's... Yeah. I need it. Like, I just eat it because I need fuel to, like, keep going, but I don't, like, love it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, when you put it that way, it does sound weird.
But that's cool, though. That makes you kind of special, I guess.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, we'll bring things up to speed, like present day, and then I guess we could probably leave it at that. So now, the upcoming release, because we're doing this in December. In January, you've got a new album coming out. Why don't you talk about that a little bit, and kind of how you wrote that, and if there's a concept behind it. I saw there's an album, I don't know what you'd call that, a promo or a trailer video, I guess, that you did.
Yeah, announcement trailer video.
Yeah. I saw that. That's on YouTube. It's really cool. I love the visuals.
Thank you.
Great job with that.
Well, I wrote this album during the better part of 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a long time coming. The reason why it took so long was that previously I've written an album, and those songs that I've written that have become the album. And this time I wrote probably closer to 30 tracks that were like fully written and mixed. So I just kept trying to find the right direction, because I felt like 3 albums behind me, I need to create something new. I wanted to experiment, and I just didn't want to like use the same old tricks, so to speak.
You had a bank of 30 songs to go off of.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah. And it's always hard to kill your darlings because you spend so much time on them.
Yeah.
And just to put them aside is hard. But looking back now is probably pretty good because you always try to outdo your previous song. At least that is for me. You love what you like. Your favorite song is the most recent one. You try to trump that. And I did a lot of experimentation with like taking strings, and I would make them sound crazy. I would make them sound like weird space synths, and I would like track my vocals a lot, and I would process them and bring them in. So there are a lot of ambient and atmospheric soundscapes tucked into the songs, which is very fun for me to like. They're not upfront, so it's not an ambient album, but the backdrop is very atmospheric.
Oh, I'll be listening for it. I'll be listening.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time just trying to create cool textures and find a balance in the kind of songs I was writing. Some were very calm and like I used a lot of piano, and some were very epic and big and crescendo inducing. I just I wanted to try to write new stuff, and I didn't want to like contain myself to just. I didn't want to decide too much. I didn't want to intellectualize my process. I just wanted to write almost every day and see where that took me. And the end product is 14 songs, and I can't wait to release them because some of them's been with me for like 2-3 years now.
Wow!
Nice.
So yeah, I'll hope you guys will like them.
I'm sure we will, man.
I heard your first one that was out there. I don't remember the name. What was the first one that you?
This Explosion.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh no, sorry, Silver Lining. Perhaps Silver Lining came first.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, for that song, I decided I wouldn't drown it in guitars. I would let the piano take the center stage, and I guess that's been my process in this album. That I've tried to find a focus element to bring forward, and then I'll build around it, so to speak, behind it and around it, and dress it up in different textures and stuff. But so I have very clear and focused melodies and very hopefully interesting and dynamic backgrounds. Almost. Awesome. It's always hard to describe your music like this.
Yeah.
You know, because it's so much. You did so much that it's almost hard to find the words to describe it.
The way I'd probably describe your music is it's something that you can listen to and it really just makes you think. You know, it makes you reflect on your life. You think of dreams, memories. It's just a really deep. Kind of an emotional.
You to look internally.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you.
Absolutely.
That's great to hear. I always love when people say that they've traveled somewhere cool. I just did a Reddit AMA the other day, and there was this guy who said he was traveled around all these mountains, climbing them, and he played my songs on the journeys, and that the songs became synonymous with those memories for him. And
that's great.
So cool. Yeah, that's like. I get so happy when I hear that, when people actually spend time with stuff I write in their everyday life.
Yeah.
It's such an honor, really.
Yeah. I feel the same way. I mean, I haven't done like crazy mountain hikes, but I relate to what Nick's saying. Like it causes me to just kind of like it when I listen to, well, there's a couple songs you have that particularly bring more out of that. Well, first off, so you now you have two different projects, right? Because you got Lights&Motion, and then you do release music under your actual name.
Yeah, I do. That's the reason for, like, I always want to write music, and some things are not compatible with the Lights&Motion project, and then I like to have another outlet, so I just can keep write in different styles, and some is more like film music-ish. I've just written a couple of tracks that are like pure orchestral, big symphony stuff, and so it's great to be able to pick and choose and not be limited by.
Yeah, your music for film and television, Volume 2, I just adore it. I love it.
It's good.
And like from the moment that you were like putting out the teasers for it, you led off with what is the first track on it, called "Light My Fire," and that piano melody is just awesome. It's just terrific.
That's a very funny story. That is probably the first melody I ever wrote before I knew how to play the piano. My friend had an old grand it was his dad's, and I would sit there and I would just place my fingers and I'd play that melody without knowing what I was doing. And that was the only thing I could play. So every time I'd go to his house, I would play that thing, and he would laugh and say, "Can't you come up with anything else?" And then I was writing that album, and that came to me after years of not having played it at all. And then I turned it into a track, and it came very easily. So it was so fun to bring something that was like 12 years old and make a song out of it. So it's funny you should mention that song.
Yeah. I like that one a lot. Just the pure melody is great. But for me, I think my overall favorite song that you've ever done is a song called Paper Wings. And it's just like, that's pretty much just you on piano, and I know you added some soundscapes in it that kind of come in a little bit later, but that melody, like every time I listen to it, and there's been several times when I just put it on before I go to sleep just because of the effect it has on me. Like there's no other piece of music that I've listened to that I can think of that really just makes me think about my life, I guess. Like it just feels like all of my life just kind of unravels, and I just start like really just looking at everything, and just like maybe it's overthinking sometimes, maybe it's not, but it really just feels like it's one of the most emotional pieces of music I've ever heard. And it just really like it the only way that I can describe it, because music is its own language really, is like it's for those moments when you don't really have like certain words to communicate what's in your heart, and like this does the talking for you. That's what it feels like to me. Yeah, it's like I don't know what to say, but this is what's going to talk for me right now.
Wow, I'm honored. Thank you. It's so funny that you'll mention that song, because that is so minimalistic and so simple.
That's
and it just
goes
to show that you don't have to stuff your music with a lot of stuff necessarily. There is beauty in simplicity too. And that song, I tracked myself twice, and I did not do any post editing at all. I just wanted to keep it bare and very raw. And I didn't record to a set tempo. I just pressed record and I played through it, so it ebbs and flows in tempo. It slows down and it speeds up. And there is something to that you don't really need to make it perfect in order for it to have an emotional resonance necessarily. That was my thought process behind how I recorded that song anyway. So
Yeah, well, it's almost like
Thanks a lot.
sometimes it gets to a point where if you get too caught up in like trying to make everything like perfectly, especially with MIDI nowadays, you start dragging notes to make sure that everything is perfectly on the grid.
Right.
You start to lose some of the, I think, like just some of the natural, organic humanness aspect of what makes music so beautiful.
Yeah, you want to keep that human element in there if possible. It's very easy to get caught up in editing everything and making it perfect, but you shouldn't do that. You should just try to keep your fingers from the mouse and just let it be a little uneven. And like, I think there is some of my most favorite musical moments are when I hear people like they almost make a mistake or they're almost out of tune or whatever, but it just carries an emotional weight somehow.
Yes.
Interesting. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And also if we're gonna back up to the to like music production, I think that there is a lot of beauty in bringing in ugly sounds, lack of a better word. Like if everything is pristine sounding, it sort of gets uninteresting.
Yeah.
So I like to bring in weird little distorted noises and combine them with the more lush sounds. And I think that in that contrast there is something interesting. More and more I like gravitate towards that.
Yeah, you had a song that I don't remember the name of it, so forgive me, but I remember like you wrote a little blurb about it and you said you sampled a clock ticking. I don't know if it was a grandfather clock, but like
yeah. I think that's a song on my music for film and television called Chase Dreams. And I sample a clock. That's right.
That's so cool because like that's not even. No one would say that a clock is a musical instrument, you know.
Exactly. But it made a cool sound.
Yes.
And that sort of became the beat. And you can do stuff like that even if no one else knows. You know that there is a weird element in there that sort of puts a mark on the song.
I know. Yeah. Like something you just bring in something that like puts a signature on it. Because it's some little dissonant element that isn't quite the usual, I guess, for lack of a better way of putting it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There's a track on my new album called Perfect Symmetry where I, just to be experimental, I recorded a lot of atmosphere and ambient stuff in a different tempo, and then I brought it in and I changed the tempo, and then I wrote on top of what I had created and reversed it as well, just to force myself to be like led by this piece of music that I hadn't really any control of.
Wow. And
it turned out to be one of my most favorite moments of the album, and that just goes to show how good it is sometimes to not be in total control of your process, just to force yourself to do something differently. Like that's an extreme example, but it sort of goes with the entire bringing in an element of surprise in there.
Yes,
which I really like to do. There are a lot of choirs on this album that are so distorted. You couldn't tell it's a choir or it's a human voice, but I know that it's a human voice. You know what I mean? Like it's so much more fun than just having a synth. For me, it is. Knowing that someone is singing there, but it sounds like really weird, but sort of beautiful too. So there's a lot of small little tidbits and surprises like that sprinkled here and there.
Can't wait to hear it.
Yeah. Looking forward. So the album's called Dear Avalanche. What's the date?
Yeah. The date is January 20th.
All right. January 20th.
Is it 5 weeks away or 6 weeks? Something like that.
Yeah, that's close.
Like that, yeah.
It's close.
It is close. Yeah. It should be good.
The hype is building.
Yeah, I can't wait to release it. And people are so amazingly kind and encouraging and so I really taken that to heart. I feel very supported, and that's something that I won't ever take for granted. You know, you always worry that people won't be interested, and every time I do put out music and I feel like there are people listening, I feel so humbled by that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is amazing. Really
well, that's awesome. And well, I think I could speak for you when I say this. Like we hope to be part of that group that continues to encourage you to make music, man.
Absolutely, we love it, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, man, because you write some truly beautiful stuff that it just, again, it's like stepping into another world where there's another language, and you know, and that's what I love about it. Yeah, it almost feels
it's a
like
universal language. You know?
It is. It's very metaphysical, if I can use that term, because it just feels like it's transcending above just like the everyday physical world of five senses. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the great thing about music.
Yeah,
it truly is a word language.
Mm-hmm.
But this has been so great. It was really fun to talk to you guys.
Yeah, man. Thanks so much
Thanks for being on the show.
giving us some of your time and coming on the show. And we'll have this out in I don't know, maybe a couple weeks or something. But I'll keep you posted. And just thanks a lot for giving us your time and talking to us and talking music and creativity and stuff.
Thank you.
I love it.
Yeah,
I get to talk way too rarely with like-minded people, so it's been great.
Well, hopefully sometime in the future you can come back. We'll do it again. But for now,
for sure.
we'll leave it at this. So again, just to remind everybody, January 20th, 2017, Lights&Motion's got a new album coming out called Dear Avalanche. Go pick up a copy when it's out there. I'm looking forward to it myself.
I am as well.
So,
absolutely.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Sweet. All right. We'll leave it there. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah. Take
right.
care. Nice meeting you both.
Yeah, and get some sleep, all right?
All right.
Have a good day writing, man.
Thanks. Take
all
care.
Right. Take care, you too.
Bye.
All right, bye. All right, and we're back. I hope you guys enjoyed that interview as much as I did. And I know it happened a little while ago. This was back in, the early part of 2017, or the interview itself, I think, was December of 2016, because that's when Dear Avalanche was a brand new album. Was it earlier this year, 2018? I'm mixed up on that. Sorry, I don't know off the top of my head, but Dear Avalanche is not Lights&Motion, not their newest album. They've got some new stuff since then, but the interview is still as relevant as ever. I really enjoyed Christoffer's candidness and just how willing he was to share his process with us. Just give us a good glimpse into the mind of a very brilliant songwriter and composer. You guys should go out and check out his new stuff. What's his last project called? I'm going to look it up right now because it's worth looking into. Let's see, Lights&Motion. So Dear Avalanche was 2017. I was right about that. And the latest EP of his is called While We Dream. I was just listening to it earlier today. It's absolutely gorgeous. So I strongly recommend you guys go check it out. You won't be sorry. So I just want to close the podcast with a few things. If you guys enjoyed this, I would really appreciate a review. You can leave that on iTunes or Stitcher or whatever platform you're listening. Those reviews really help me out, really helps the podcast climb up the rankings, get noticed, and helps other people figure out whether or not they want to listen to it as well. And we're everywhere now. So we're on iTunes. We've got this thing on Stitcher and on Google Play. So whether you're an Android or a iPhone/Apple user, you can find it. And also subscribe to the show. Don't just, I know sometimes you want to maybe sample it and see what it's like, but if you enjoyed this, give it a little subscribe. Just push that subscribe button, and anytime a new episode comes out, it's going to pop right into your feed. And then a couple more things. I'm starting an email list, and I'm going to be notifying everybody when new episodes come out, and maybe have some little exclusive stuff in there you won't find anywhere else. So I will drop the link for that email sign up in the description of this podcast. But if you're too lazy to do a little copy and pasting, I'll just give you the link that you can go to. You can visit southshoreaudio.com, use the / and then the word podcast. So southshoreaudio.com/podcast. There's a button there that says sign up now. If you click on that, it's going to redirect you to a sign up form. Just go ahead and give me your name and email, and I'd love to have you on my email list. We can get started communicating through there. And then lastly, if you guys have any feedback, any suggestions, if you enjoyed today's show, I want to hear from you. Go ahead and send me an email. My email is southshoreaudio@gmail.com. Simple enough, right? So go ahead and send me an email. I'd love to hear from you guys. I read all the notes that people send me, and I'll probably respond too, because I love hearing from you guys. So that's all for this time. I'll catch you guys on the next show. So next time.